Today we're going to talk about the mid-year freakout tag, and I don't actually know which week this is coming up. Full disclosure, been bulk filming. I move in June, so it's happening now. I think I always post this in June though, and not in July. I've never been a stickler for it. It's exactly 6 months of the way through the year. And so we're just going to get into it. I have my list. I will have the prompts down below. I think my version is usually a little longer than other people's because I found someone one year who had multiple questions at the bottom that I was like, oh, I really like those. I don't see that in other mid-year tags. So I don't know. And the original video no longer has an active link anymore, but if I can try and find the videos where I got these prompts from, I will post those down below. And I'm not going to tag anyone because no one tags anyone, but if you are a new booktuber, do this tag. It's super fun. All right, so the first question is always best book, and I have caveats here because as I was making this list, it's like, if I'm not careful, I'm just going to talk about the same 3 books this entire video, and I'm trying to vary it because I had a lot of good hits this year. So this is the best not in a series book that I've read. I think what I've decided for this one, and that is The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu, and it also kind of represents, this is one of those authors that I'm really excited to be exploring and reading this year, and so far this is my favorite thing that I have read by him. And for sure one of my favorite short story collections of all time. It's in contention with Exhalation, which, if you're new here, Exhalation is my favorite short story collection ever. I've read it twice. It never gets old. So The Paper Menagerie is by far one of the best things I've read this year. It's probably not technically the best, and we'll get into that for this next question, which is the best sequel. And I'm just putting the entire Chorus of Dragons here because this was the highlight of the first half of the year for me, barring none. This is primarily the series where I'm like, okay, you cannot answer every question with Chorus of Dragons. I do have a series review, spoiler-free, of should you read this series. I don't think it's for everyone, but it was 100% for me and brought me so much joy over the 2.5 months that I read this series. My favorite book might be the third one, which is the sequel, which is why I put it here, and that's Memory of Souls. That's just truly, I think, where my main characters were just at their peak, in terms of how much page time I got with them. But I gave every book in this series 5 stars. So for sure what I was going to put down for this question. And then number 3 are new releases that I need to get to. And there are a few, but I'm not feeling too overwhelmed. And I think the 2 that I'll talk about are actually on my June TBR, and hopefully maybe I get to both of them, and that's Daughter of the Moon Goddess and Blood Trials. They're very different books, but they're both by Harper Voyager, so it seems that as I'm looking through everyone's reviews of new releases, the Harper Voyager ones are the ones popping out at me. Daughter of the Moon Goddess is about the daughter of a moon goddess in Chinese mythology, and it's on this celestial plane, and I think it involves a lot of training montages. I know there's a strong romantic element, which I'm excited about. I was talking with friends the other day that I like romance in my books a fair bit. I don't always feel like I want a romance book, which is very tailored to focusing on the romance. I like a book with a strong plot component that naturally facilitates the romance, and I'm hoping it scratches that itch. We will see. And then Blood Trials, I'm hoping, is that action-packed, twisty-turny, sci-fi, can't put down, kind of grimmer, violent tale based off the reviews I've seen. I'm really interested in it. So very different books, but I love how both of them look enough that I've already purchased them. So for sure, of the new releases that have come out this year. And I guess the third one that I for sure need to read, and I haven't yet, but it just came out, so I don't feel as bad about it, and that is Seasonal Fears by Shauna Maguire. I love Middle Game, and I actually have already started Seasonal Fears, which is why it's not the true answer. I've read a couple chapters, and I'm intrigued. I'm really interested and cannot wait to continue the story and see how I feel about this new duo that I'm following. I don't think it'll be the same level as Roger and Dodger, but I do find them really compelling and easy to root for. Number 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I have 2, can't pick just one. Sorry, breaking the rules, I guess, but there's a new Jemison and a new Sanderson in November this year, so those are my favorite authors. I cannot just pick one. They're very different too, and they're both endings to series, so I really can't. So the Jemison is the second book in the Greater Cities duology. I can't remember the name of it, but here's the cover, and it's really pretty, and I cannot wait. And I'm really, really hoping maybe she'll tour. Maybe. I understand when authors don't want to tour right now because it's still not super safe. So I respect it. But if she does, maybe I can finally get signed copies. Oh, it'd be exciting. And then Sanderson has the last book in Mistborn Era 2. And I am working on getting a read-along put together. Keep your eyes out for an announcement video, probably in July. But I'm getting that together, going to read a book a month up to that release. So, and I am planning on rereading The City We Became in anticipation for the book I can't remember the name of, but here's the image. I just think that'll be more casual. Like, for sure I'll have a chat in the Discord. It'll probably be the month before the other book comes out, because that's typically how I pace series. I'm just really excited for both of these. It's just like two of my favorite authors, and they write really differently, so I won't get like burnt out. They'll like palate cleanse each other. It's gonna be fantastic. And then number 5 is your most disappointing read of the year. And I have two. One that, I mean, both of them I was expecting to like a lot, and both of them really let me down. The first one's Malice by John Gwynne. I have a review for this, spoiler-free, of my pros and cons, what worked, what didn't work. And I was bummed because so many of my friends love this series, and it seems like on paper it has a bunch of tropes that I should like. It is high epic fantasy, it's got stakes, there's a lot of action. I just really didn't like the execution in the writing and the character work. Like, yeah, I had a lot of issues. I still need to read more by John Gwynne. I haven't given up on him as an author, but I was just really disappointed in this. I think, based off reviews, I might try the Shadow of the Gods trilogy first and then go back to the Banished Lands based off how I feel about how his writing has progressed, because a lot of my issues were in writing style. And I have heard it's really different, but it's just so hard to pick up a second book in a series when you really didn't enjoy the first one. It's just like really difficult. And then this next one is, no, it's not surprising. I feel like so many people have this on their disappointments, but it's House of Sky and Breath. I desperately needed this book. It was in the month before my defense. I was depressed out of my mind. Sarah J. Maas normally comes through, and I had just reread House of Earth and Blood, and I really liked it, and this book is overwritten, not well plotted, clunky, not enjoyable. Like, even the romance part, I'm like, where's the romance? Like, it can't just be this physical attraction thing. Like, where is the stuff I'm used to? So I didn't like it. I didn't hate it as much as people hate it, but I was definitely disappointed in this one. Number 6 is your biggest surprise, and again, I have two because I just get over it, I guess, if you really care about people cheating on tags. I don't think anyone does, but anyways. The first one is Goliath by Tochi Onibuchi. This one surprised me because I almost DNF'd it. I have a review for this as well, and I even talk about how I almost DNF'd it in my review. It was really hard for me to read the first 50 to 60 pages. It was very disjointed, non-linear, really dense vocabulary in the writing. It was hard. And the minute I finished it, I asked for a finished copy from Tor, because I'm like, I want to read this again, and I want to see what it's like reading the physical before I make a review. And then I read it again in the same month, so I read it twice in a month, and I ended up giving it like 4.5 stars. It is such rich literary science fiction, near future. It is masterful. It's not going to be for everyone, and it's not necessarily a book about enjoying or escaping, but it definitely does what I really love science fiction to do, which is think about the near future and, like, I don't know, do that in a compelling way, and I feel like nothing is doing what Goliath is doing, and it's a phenomenal science fiction novel. And then the other one is more of an entertainment read that I just truly didn't think would steal my heart so much, and that's the Queens of Renthia trilogy. I loved this trilogy. I don't know how to review it, because truly it was just like, it was comfortable. I escaped. It had the tropes I liked. It didn't overstay its welcome. Each book is like 300 to 400 pages. It's just a really well-paced, well-plotted series with characters I really enjoyed following, and a great audiobook narrator. And I don't know, I read it only for my Reddit bingo. I really had no plans, and now I need to check out more Sarah Beth Durst, because it seems like she might really scratch my escapism itch in fantasy in terms of just like being real cozy and just following a scenario to its conclusion. I don't know. It was a really wonderful time, and I was truly surprised at how instantly invested I was in this series from like the first couple chapters. Number 7 is a new to you author, and this one, like, I've only read a short story and a book, but like I'm most excited to get more into the backlist of this author and a new release coming out later this year, and that is T. Kingfisher. I read Nettle and Bone, and I really, really liked Nettle and Bone, and I really liked the short story in Mythic Dreams, so there's just so much potential for this author in me. Like, I could put Ken Liu here too, but I already talked about the Paper Menagerie, and I'm actually more excited about T. Kingfisher than Ken Liu. I mean, I'm already in the Dandelion Dynasty, I'm already working on that. Like, eventually I will run out of stuff. T. Kingfisher, there are so many things, and if the character work and banter keeps connecting with me, this time next year, it could be on my favorite authors list, which I still need to update, but I'm just really, really excited. And up next is Fictional Crush I'm changing this to favorite romance book because I don't know what this means. And I'm going to put The Love Hypothesis here. I've actually been reading a lot more romance this year, which is why I just felt like changing this prompt up. And The Love Hypothesis was by far my favorite. And normally what makes a romance book my favorite is that I really like the hero in it, so I figured it works for fictional crush. I thought the professor character was a great grump, and I just love a grumpy character in the books, so didn't really like Olive. She was fine, serviceable main character to exist, but I really liked the love interest, and I devoured that book in a day. I have really minor critiques about stuff, but it doesn't matter in terms of my enjoyment. Literally read it from 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. in a day. That never happens for me. And the next question is your favorite character. And I tried not to do repeats, but I truly couldn't in this case, because the reason I love Chorus of Dragons are the characters. That's it. And I'm not going to just say the whole cast, even though I love the entire cast. And I've struggled because Thurvashar, Senere, Cone, there's so many good characters, but I'm just going to go with the main trio. And that's Janelle, Teraith, and Kieran. Those are my favorites. I love them so much. I love them so much. I love them also as a unit. And if you've read the series, you get it. They're just amazing. So Kieran's just this disaster, really never knows what's going on. He's capable of learning, but he just keeps getting into trouble. He really doesn't mean to. And she's trying his best. Janelle doesn't just have to try her best. She is just the best. She's awesome. Also, I'm saying she because that's how her pronouns are used in the book, but gender identity around her character is fascinating based off the land that she's from. The world building in this series is just amazing. And then Teraith is just so sweet. I think he's also a grump. If I have to think about it, it's yeah, he's also kind of a grump. He's just so... I love Teraith. I love him a lot. You don't get his perspectives right away, but once you do, I'm just yes. So those are my favorite characters. And then a book that made me cry. I don't cry when I read. I don't know why. I cry when I watch musicals. I cry watching musicals when musicals aren't even sad. But for books, I don't know. But I had very strong emotions, heavy emotions, when I read The Vanished Birds, which is another book I have a review for, because if you don't know, I review things that I either have negative opinions on or very positive opinions on. And The Vanished Birds is phenomenal. I really don't ever know how to talk about it, because it's a book that is unlike a lot of science fiction I read, but is also very clearly a science fiction book written by an author who loves the genre. It's more literary and poetic at times, and I don't mean that in that it's a very dense flower purple prose situation. It read very easily to me, but it's definitely a book I would give to someone who reads literary fiction or general fiction and is looking to try science fiction. I would give this book to them. Especially if they read literary fiction, because this doesn't have your typical plot structure, and usually people who read literary are more used to weird narrative frameworks and structures, which this book definitely has, and that was to its benefit for me, because I love that. The first couple chapters read their own individual short stories, and then you see how everything connects, and but by the end of it, I was just emotionally aching for our characters and the situations they were in. This was such an emotionally impactful book. This author has this skill of quickly introducing you to characters and situations and getting you invested in those moments, because this is not a very long book, and I really loved it. So this is the closest, and I believe then we follow up with a book that made you happy. And I'm putting my reread here, and that's Middle Game by Shauna McGuire, because it truly did. I was so happy the 2 days I was reading this book. It's not necessarily a happy book, okay? But I was just so cozy and happy, and I was just oh man, I love this book. It's holding up. I just love these relationships. I just, all the feelings you want to be having when you're reading, I had while reading Middle Game again. And that's just always so validating for a book you're I think this is a favorite of all time, and you reread it and it still hits and you're yeah. So that was wonderful. And we're going up to book to film adaptation, which I don't think I have one, so instead I'm just putting my favorite movie of the year so far, and I feel this is not a hot take. I feel a lot of people who have seen this movie would agree with me, and that is Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. I'm not going to talk about it in detail, because if you haven't seen it, you should see it. And you should see it knowing as little as possible, although I do think it's hard to spoil this movie, because you can just say things, and without context, someone will just be huh, and then probably forget it by the time they go see this movie. But it's amazing. The thing I can say that doesn't spoil it, because it's in the trailer, and I think it's very clearly on a lot of posters, but it is a multi-dimensional sci-fi film, and it's the best use of multi-dimensions I have ever consumed. Of all the multi-dimensional movies that have been out this past year, it's the best one of that. I think this is also one of those times where this is the perfect medium for this story. I don't know if a book telling the same story would be as good, but the movie version, I have no critiques. I cannot wait for it to be on a streaming service so I can watch it again. I think you can get it on demand. I went to a theater to go see it here in Boston, and it's just, after all of us watched it, there were 4 of us all together, we just spent hours discussing this movie and all of the moments that we loved and all of the things that happened. It's a movie that even if you watch the trailer, you do not know where this movie is going, okay? Like, you just don't. Like, there'll become a point when you watch this movie and you're just like, I do not know where we go now. Where are we going? There's still half a movie. What are we doing? It's a fantastic experience. One of my favorite pieces of, like, science fiction media, period, that I've consumed this year. And then there's number 13 is the favorite video that I have produced on my channel this year, and that's my entire recent releases roundup series. That series is a lot of work. It's the most work I put into any video that I put up each month. Everything else I usually spend like 10 to 20 minutes, making notes, getting ready to film. Those take me hours because I have to make the list of books that I want to look at, which I try to make sure it's a good, like, representation of things that are popular but things that are underhyped, and good representation of authors. I have to curate that list, and then I have to go find reviews for those things and then watch them, and then I make my notes, and then I film it, and then the editing of it, and then the timestamps. It's a lot, and I don't mind it because it's exactly what I want it to be, and it seems to be working for people, and it just makes me happy. I do have that playlist probably linked down below since I talked about it in this video, but like, it's exactly what I wanted it to be, and it's fulfilling, and it seems to be, like, I don't know, it's its own thing. I don't really see anyone else doing anything like it, and so it's probably the most consistent, original content that I have on the channel, and I'm really proud of it, and it actually really helps me figure out what are the new releases that I haven't read yet that I should be getting to, which is also really fun. And number 14th is the most beautiful books that I have purchased, and I should grab those real quick. Now, the list also says it could be a gift, so I'm choosing the gift. And if you've seen one of my Friday, I think it was in a book haul, actually, I talked about these. I don't post book hauls often, but I had one book haul, and I did definitely talk about these in here, but that is his Dark Materials box set that my friends got me. It's all my TV Tag crew and Abby Salter. They're so pretty. Like, they're stunning. This is one of my favorite series of all time. Definitely one of my longest running favorite series. Yeah, actually it is. This is the longest time a book has been on my favorite series list, and hasn't been like bumped off or down or anything. It is comfort food. I think it's still very thematically relevant to me. I love the characters. Like, Lyra and Will are everything. So I have a lot of emotions about this, and it's definitely the most beautiful thing that I have acquired in the past 6 months. And the last question is so loaded, and I don't have a good distinct answer, but things that I need to read before the end of the year. I don't know, everything on all my challenges and stuff. I think, in particular, I need to prioritize Malazan more. I've been bad about it. It's big, and so it always gets put on the back burner when I'm busy and overwhelmed, which I'm not mad about, but I need to prioritize it more. So that in particular. I also similarly need to finish Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings, specifically Tawny Man this year, and that's also been a book that just like keeps getting put on the back burner and not as prioritized. Similarly, the Dandelion Dynasty. Like, there's just so many big, long series that matter. So eventually this month, I need to film my, like, summer series TBR. So those are the books I want to read this summer. But in general, I just make monthly TBRs. I have yearly challenges. I don't get too bent out of shape. I've actually read down a lot of my physical TBR before the move, which was the goal. Because in April, if you are new here, I read so many books, and the majority of them were on my physical TBR because I needed to get things done before I got out of here, and I actually unhauled a bunch of them, so it worked great. But that's the mid-year freakout tag, and I'm not freaking out, but that's mainly because I'm just really, really excited to move into my new apartment. Like, I'm so excited. Hopefully I can get that setup done pretty easily, and there'll be a pretty smooth transition, but we shall see. I'm really excited. If you have done this tag, feel free to point me that way. Although if you post links, I think YouTube automatically gets rid of them. So, and if you are just in my Discord and you want to talk about responses to this, we can make a chat, or we can just talk about it in our general chat section. You're also allowed to put your answers down in the comments. Anything you want to do. I would love to hear your answers or any comments on the answers I've given. If you want to just leave an emoji to let me know you're here. I don't know, what book did I talk about? I guess A Dragon for Chorus of Dragons. That made the biggest impact on this list. I think last year it was Mask of Mirrors that did the most, and I think this year it's Chorus of Dragons. So, Dragon for that, and like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.